Our Region's Business is sponsored by PNC for the achiever in you. Our Region's Business. Innovation, transformation, momentum, improving our communities and driving technologies that will shape our region for generations. The collaboration that brings vitality, prosperity, and life to living. Stay with us for the coming half hour as we examine in depth our region's business. Now, here's your host, Bill Flanagan.
Today on Our Region's Business, a new initiative to strengthen communities in our region by coordinating private sector investment. Plus, the Robin Hood of K Street. And no, it's not as much of an oxymoron as you might think. But first, ups and downs in transportation. On the downside, Pennsylvania lawmakers were unable to reach agreement on state funding for transportation infrastructure and transit before they adjourned for the summer. On the upside, landing fees are rolling back at Pittsburgh International Airport thanks to natural gas drilling, cutting costs for airlines. So what's all this mean to those of us who have to get in and out of our region or just get around while we're here? Well, Allegheny County Executive Rich Fitzgerald is back with us to put it all in perspective. Good to see you.
Good to be with you, Bill. Thank you.
Yeah, well, let's start with the positive news first.
Go for the good news first.
Yeah, we'll start with the bright stuff, which really is around the whole landing fee issue. A lot of talk when you negotiated the deal for drilling at the airport that landing fees would come down someday, but this is moving pretty fast.
Well, the deal that we struck with CONSOL, which was very historic in many ways, and it'll probably be north of $1 billion when you add in the infrastructure that they're going to spend in building and out, and probably at least $500 million that the taxpayer, the airport's going to get from the royalties. We talked about a couple of things. What would that money be used for? What would be the benefit to the community for that? And one of them was to lower some of the landing fees and make the airport more competitive. When we lost the hub about a decade ago, when U.S. Airways pulled out, it left the cost per plane, per airline that was left higher. So we were a little bit less competitive, and we still are in some ways, but we want to lower those fees. Some of it will go on to the flying passenger, the air flying passenger, which we're obviously very happy about, but also will make us more competitive to try to attract more flights. And that's something that we really need in the business community for our market to reach other markets.
Well, it makes it a little more likely the airlines can turn a profit flying in and out of Pittsburgh, right? It reduces the cost.
That's correct. That's correct. So it makes us more competitive, makes them more likely to put more flights here. Now, is this going to be the silver bullet that's going to get us another hub? I don't want to give false hope, because I think there's other things happening within the industry over the last 10 years that really we haven't had much to say with. Some of it being with deregulations, mergers, bankruptcies, things that are happened. Obviously the U.S. Airways American merger, on top of other mergers that have occurred in the industry, has kind of made the industry want to move to the East Coast. So they're putting all their hubs in the East Coast. So if you ever fly out of Philly or New York or LaGuardia, Newark, you can't move in those airports because they've jammed everybody in there. But if you go to a Midwestern airport, a St. Louis, a Memphis, an Indianapolis, a Pittsburgh, it's very it's much less crowded. Let's just say that
the whole heartland is kind of in the same boat these days.
The whole heartland, we're all in the same boat together. Correct.
Yeah. Now we do have the one bright spot. I know Delta's nonstop transatlantic flight to Paris still operating these days.
Doing well, and the airlines that are flying out of Pittsburgh and the flights they're flying are doing well. I mean, we've added some flights over the last couple of years. Another LA flight, a Houston flight. A Nashville flight. So we are adding flights one and two at a time. And I think, again, with the energy industry growing here in western Pennsylvania, we're going to see that continue. I have a story that I really love that I heard the other day. There's a national conference in Denver that's occurring around energy, oil and gas. And I couldn't make it, but our economic development director went in my stead. And he happened to be over here, and about 4 or 5 guys who were talking about the energy business. One's from Texas, one's from Louisiana, one's from Wyoming. And they talk about where they meet. They meet in Pittsburgh because they're always here. So whenever they want to get together, they're doing it in Pittsburgh. So it just goes to show how we've become a real energy hub in this nation.
And that's true, and a lot of it's still at the beginning of it all. It's only been about a decade since they found gas in the Marcellus Shale. Well, I want to turn, so that's the good stuff. It's at least a little bit of a bright light, moving in the right direction out at the airport thanks to the drilling. Let's talk about the other part. Legislature, 11th hour, got to the brink and adjourned for the summer without a transportation and transit funding bill getting through. It has to be a blow for the region.
It's frustrating, not just for the region, but for the whole state. We, as a Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, transportation is the lifeblood, the circulation, if you will, of our economy. If we can't get people to work, if we can't move our goods and products around, it's going to stifle this economy. It's going to lead to job loss, unemployment, companies losing money or companies lessening their profits. So we do need the legislature to move when they come back in the fall to pass a transportation bill. Thank goodness the Senate did. I give the Senate a lot of credit. A bipartisan bill. It passed 45-5. So the leadership of Leader Scarnati, Leader Costa, and Chairman Rafferty, putting that together, they deserve a lot of credit, a lot of
and a bill that seemed to be big enough to do the job.
That's correct. And a bill that seemed
total funding and the revenue.
And Governor Corbett came out. In fact, he held a couple of events here in Pittsburgh urging the legislature to pass a transportation bill. So far, it's been bottled up in the House, and we really need the House again when they come back in the fall to really move this. And it's not just the buses. Obviously, we need transit in downtown Pittsburgh for our business community, in Oakland, in other areas too, but they're the two biggest employment centers in our region. Southeast the same way. Philadelphia in the SEPTA system, they're reliant on it. But it's not just that. It's the farmer in the middle of the state. That bridge now is weight limited. They can't drive their trucks. They can't get their material over the bridges. Now they've got to drive 20 miles out of the way to get their goods to market. So whether you're talking about manufacturers, whether you're talking about the agricultural industry, whether you're talking about people who live in urban settings, we are all dependent on transportation. We need to get this done.
Now, only about 30 seconds left, but this, the budget deadline's passed. It's a lot harder to get action without a deadline. They're coming into this session, with an election year ahead. How likely is it, do you think, that they'll get this done this fall?
I think it's likely if we all put our voices to it. And I think I've never seen a coalition of people from business and labor, from universities, from institutions, from nonprofits, rich and poor, city, suburb, rural, who are all coming together to support a transportation bill. So I think the coalition that's there to support it politically really is going to put pressure on the legislature to get something done. I think the Senate responded to that, as has the governor. We just need the House to do so.
All right. Rich Fitzgerald, Allegheny County Executive, thank you so much.
Good to be here, Bill. Thank you.
Next up, strengthening communities by leveraging private sector resources in a big way. Stay with us.